Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the first event of the Portuguese semester. And it's also the first lunch talk webinar. My name is Sofia Batista Leite, and I'm here representing the Portuguese cultural semester of ISPRA. Today, we start with this event because we want to celebrate the International Education Day that was actually yesterday, and it's the day celebrated by UNESCO. It's the 3rd edition, and if you want to have more details about the framework or about what they want to celebrate this day, you have all the information on our website. I hope you have seen it. If not, I invited you to see. It's really education. It's really important, and I think for this community there is no really need to explain why education is so important. Already, Nelson Mandela was saying that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And don't we want to change the world every day? And nowadays it's so important for so many reasons. And also in Portugal, we really need to invest on education to have minds that are informed. And we decided to celebrate thinking in our careers because we are constantly learning. We are being constantly educated. So our career, it's also very important for our education. But I will not go more into this, otherwise I will spoil the presentation that is coming after. I will give the word to one of our presidents, Ricardo Souza, that it's going to tell you a bit more about the semester, and then I will present our next presenter. Ricardo, are you there?
Yes, I am. And again, a big welcome from myself. A big thank you also to you, Sofia, for sharing this webinar, and to Pedro to be with us. We started thinking about this idea of career development several months ago. I am glad we managed to partner with Pedro and Chaperone. And so I hope we have many attendees. I'm still waiting for the number, but this is something that we will certainly publish on our website. I have just published the website's link for those that have not seen it yet. And we will, of course, be doing many other things. Sofia will mention one of the next events that we will have, but many will be online, and I hope you can still follow us and join. So help us rock the boat. You saw the video of our symbol. It's a paper boat, and we are doing things around this symbol. And our motto as well is very important. So dream, so transform your dreams into reality, and follow us not only now, but in the following events during the next months and weeks. And back to you, Sofia.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. So as Ricardo was saying, our guest, it's Pedro Resende from Chaperone. Thank you so much. So Chaperone, as you will see, is an online marketplace of personalized career development for scientists. And students and science professionals can browse and book online one-to-one sessions with career consultants. And Chaperone aims to empower scientists in the management of their careers. And one of the things that we like the most, it's a completely green company, because you can do your sessions online without traveling, and you have many specialists. But today it's Pedro who is going to talk, and himself, he has a very rich career, although he's still quite young. He has a lot of experience from academia to industry to consultant, and he even started his own startup. And so welcome, Pedro. Before I give the floor to Pedro, I would like to just know a bit more also of our audience. And we prepared a short Slido. So I hope that you can see my my screen, and here you can screen this QR to join Slido, or just go to the slido.com and put this symbol. And I will start with some questions just to see the background of the people that are attending this webinar. So first question, from where are you following us? Let us know where in the planet are you following. Okay, we have people from Porto, Portugal, Varese, Italy, Lisbon, Brussels as well, Germany. It's good to see people from so many places. Okay. It's still growing. London. I take the advantage to tell, I saw some hands being raised. If you have any questions, you can use the QA from Zoom. Okay, I think we are okay. Next question, at which point of your career are you now? Okay, it's quite well distributed. Okay, I think we all have answered. A lot of temporary positions that people are not so much worried yet with the next step in the career, but it's good that you're attending already this webinar. It's always good to think about our career and even being relaxed, already starting to plan. So I will go to the next question. Oh, no, there are still some questions, some answers. So in terms of career planning, how would you define your situation? Wow, there are people that have all their career plan. I'm really jealous, to be honest. I have to confess, I would also fit in the first group. So I feel identified that a lot of people still can answer this question. Okay, so this was actually the last question from Slido. So Pedro, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and speak for the Portuguese semester and our audience. And I'm looking forward to hear you.
Hi everyone. I hope you had a good weekend, and it's a great pleasure to be here and share my personal insights on career development for scientists. And also I would like to thank Sofia and Ricardo for inviting me and hosting me for this great event at the JRC and the Portuguese Presidency for the semester. So I'd like to start by traveling back in time to 2005 and let you know that among the more than 80 biology graduates of my class, the majority of us wanted to be an academic researcher. But the truth is that after 15 years, less than 10 of us saw that dream come true. I'm actually one of those 10, but my career is far from being linear. As Sofia was saying in the introduction, I've been lucky to experience different roles. I've worked as academic researcher. I've worked in a large pharmaceutical company, Pfizer. I've worked in professional associations. I worked as a policy advisor, as a consultant, and now I'm even leading a tech startup. But this looks very nice in this PowerPoint slide, or it can look very nice in a CV if I write it correctly. But the truth is, associated with this was a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of very, very difficult career pivots to make. And this was because I lacked the proper career support that I needed. And I'm not an exception. This is the reality for the majority of the researchers that I know of. And the truth is that we no longer have linear careers. So throughout our careers, we are faced with many decisions that we have to make. And this is becoming the norm. And it's complicated to make this decision, particularly coming from what is a typical education and training for academics, where we are not trained to make these career decisions, and we are only trained in most of the places to stay in academic market. But the truth is, and I think this is not a surprise for the majority of the audience here today, is that there is a growing competition for academic jobs worldwide. This is not an issue of country A or B, it's an issue of pretty much every single country in the world. And just to illustrate that, I picked here 3 examples of 3 different countries, the data that I could gather from 2 different years, 2004 and 2018. And over this period, I would like to show you that Portugal increased the number of PhDs awarded for a year in the order of 2.5. The UK increased it in the order of 1.9, and Spain increased it in the order of 2.1. So this, I think, illustrates very well how the pressure for academic jobs is increasing, because we're generating much more PhDs. And one might argue that, okay, over this period, maybe the funding for research increases, therefore the competition is okay. But that is not the truth. Actually, for instance, in Portugal, in the same period, there was a 0.1 decrease in the R&D expenditure, as evaluated as the percentage of the gross domestic product. In the UK, there was an increase, and in Spain, but this was far from being in the same proportion of the graduates that we are generating. And I picked these 3 different countries, but the reality is very similar across Europe. And in fact, even outside Europe, there's a dramatic increase in the number of PhDs. China, for instance, is the fastest growing country in the number of PhDs awarded. And it's also impacting the way we find our jobs, as the job market for academic careers is international, as you know. And this, I think, is the reason why we see estimates of people that are starting their careers now having a chance of staying in academia of 5% or lower, depending on the country. And this has 2 strong implications. An implication that those who want to stay in academia, they will need career development, because they are entering in a hyper-competitive market where any help is useful and can contribute to the success. While the remaining 95%, they need help to navigate the job market, to go from jobs outside to jobs outside research institutions or universities, because the truth is that the majority of those jobs and the type of application that you do or the type of transition that you have to make is different from the transitions that we make in the academic market. This is impacting researchers worldwide. So this is one of the most important sectors within our societies, representing 1.7 trillion US dollars in terms of global investment. And as part of the Sustainable Development Goals, the countries have pledged to substantially increase the number of researchers. So there are arguments for the problem or this hyper competition to continue to grow over the next years. And in a survey that we did, 82% of researchers mentioned that they were looking or they were in need of career development, but only 33% of these researchers mentioned that they had access to career development. So there's clearly a need here for novel solutions to allow scientists in different research institutions to access career development. Once again, this is an impact that is not felt only at the level of the scientists, it's felt at the level of our societies. In fact, it's not a surprise, I believe, for the majority of the audience here that this leads to underemployment, to career stagnation, to financial insecurity. And these are all things that impact two of very important sustainable development goals, namely quality education and decent and economic growth. This impact is so strong that there are many statistics also showing a very, very worry scenario in terms of the mental health for researchers. It is estimated that 2 out of 5 scientists are affected by depression caused by work-related problems. This is an increase of 4 times compared to the overall population. And despite the fact that the most common impacts of the lack of career development are felt at the level of the employability and our well-being and mental health, I also would like to point out these are not only the 2 areas that are affected by the lack of career development. Also, the productivity of the research is significantly impacted for obvious reasons. And this is also a contributor for 2 big problems that affect research institutions also internationally, which are scientific misconduct and bullying and harassment. This problem that I've been describing actually has been recognized by many countries, and at the level of the European Union in 2005, more than 1,200 institutions from 41 countries committed to what is known as the European Charter for Researchers, where it's very clear that research institutions who commit to this goal must provide career development to their staff. But many years have passed, and we know that the majority of the scientists, actually 2 out of 3 scientists, still don't have access to career development. So we're failing to provide effective measurements to give access to career development, at least at the democratized level. And if this data was not convincing enough, Nature actually launched a survey that was published this year, or 2020, sorry, the year that just passed. And the data is also very, very daunting. In academia, 51% of researchers are considering to leave active research due to work-related mental health problems. 56% of postdocs have a negative view of their career outlook, and 50% of the scientists believe that the pandemic has negatively affected their career prospects. And this is the problem or the situation that I joined with Joanna in 2018 trying to solve. So I teamed up with Joanne and said, basically, well, together we worked in 8 different countries. We've seen this happening and affecting us, our careers, and the careers of most of our friends. And we said, we can do better. We can try to understand this problem better and design novel solutions that lead to a better outcome or a more democratized access to career development for scientists. And in fact, since 2018, this has been a very rewarding and learning experience. Our team has grown. I would like to also just at this point to thank very much Tiago, Jose, Catarina, and Magda for all their contributions in the past 2.5 years. And from this, I would like to share that we met with different career development institutions across Europe. We had more than 30 meetings with different career institutions. And what we've learned is that we could group the type of career development support in 3 big types of support. A lot of research institutions had no provision at all, meaning that anything that happened in an ad hoc basis. There was not an institution policy implemented in terms of career development. And anything that happened highly dependent on the views of the certain person, could be a PI or board of directors that decide to organize something in the area of career development. And importantly, there was not a budget allocated to provide career development. There were some institutions where a limited provision was implemented, meaning that one career consultant was hired, or a group of scientists, could be the postdoc representatives or the graduate students representatives, being challenged with the responsibility of organizing a select range of opportunities, workshops, or webinars regarding career development. Obviously, the intensity of these activities were low to medium, and the budget allocated was low in terms of the commitment of the overall budget of the research institution. There were some institutions where a full provision was implemented, where there was a high diversity of career consultants hired, a whole year round of opportunities combined with individual and group training support, and obviously a bigger commitment in terms of financial budget allocated for career development. But the truth is, to be honest, is even those institutions who had limited or full provision, they were still implementing models that could be improved. And we heard a lot of feedback from people in these institutions that share with us some of the things that they consider more important regarding the future of career development. And these future trends is something that I would like to share with you, what I believe that the future of career development for scientists will look like. And I'm actually very optimistic regarding this. We see some institutions already making bigger commitments regarding this. And please follow me in this sharing of these future trends that I think are very important. The first point that I would like to share with you is that we are understanding that career development is something that we need throughout our career. It's not something that we need to jumpstart our career, that we do when we finished our university and that's it. It's something that's gonna follow us throughout our careers. And actually, I would say that in later stages of our career will actually be as important or even more important than in the beginning of our careers. So it's, I think a lot of you are aware that the job market will require in science and outside science as well, continuous reskill and upskilling of our skills. And it's something that it's not just for those who want to look for jobs outside of academia. It's for those who want to look for jobs outside academia, but it's also for those who want to stay in academia and for those who don't know yet what to follow. So career development is for all of these situations. The second trend that I would like to share with you is that we're going from a vision where my supervisor is the only person that can help me to embracing the importance of different specialists and their respective roles. And what I mean by this is that in science and in science careers, we tend to overestimate the importance of our supervisor, but the truth is our supervisor is not the single or the most important person regarding our careers. We have the important role of supervisors, of course, but we can also complement that with mentors. We should complement that with career information, with career advice, with career counseling and career coaching. And I will explain briefly what these areas are and why they are important. Regarding supervision, I think it's probably the easiest one to define, but it's our supervisor is someone who guides us through the requirements of our positions, sets up our expectations, provides us feedback on the results of our experiments, and assists us in achieving our milestones of our project in a timely manner. Importantly, our supervisor has a deadline. So when our project finished, typically our supervisor is no longer a supervisor and we move on to a different project that could have the same supervisor or not. But this has a duration that is very well defined. And this is different from a mentor. Despite the fact that our supervisor can be our mentor as well, that is possible, but we can have mentors that are not our supervisors. And the type of support provided by a mentor is a different one. It's not necessarily focused on achieving the milestones of our project, but it's more focused on our long-term growth as a professional and at the personal level as well. And is provided by someone that is more senior, obviously, and more experienced person in the career path that we are following. Regarding career information, this is also quite simple to explain. This is the information and resources about the different courses, informations, career paths that are relevant for us. And in these days, the access to career information is quite easy. Internet has facilitated a lot of this. The problem is the curation of that information. So the secret is where we get that information and how to make sure that we get the right information at the right time to manage our careers. Regarding the other types of support that we have regarding our career management, I would like to highlight the role of advisors, often neglected in this role. Advisors are someone who are experienced in what we want to achieve, and they, through short-term interactions, typically one-off, and driven by specific questions or goals, they can make a tremendous help regarding our careers. For instance, if you're a researcher that wants to start your own company, getting career advice from someone who has already done that can be a tremendous help. Or if you're a researcher and want to transition to a role as a product development specialist in a company, to get to meet someone who has done that transition, to get to know what kind of certifications that person has done, how did they change their CVs, if they, where did they look for those kind of jobs, all those kind of career advice can be really, really important. Then we move on to career counselors. These are people who are experienced in career development. They can be a psychologist, they can be from human resources. In some countries, such as the UK or Australia, for instance, there are specific training for career guidance, for instance. And these people are experienced in making a skills audit and aligning our attributes and interests with our career options. They help us understand our barriers and think about what we want to do, building self-awareness and self-confidence. These are people who are very keen in helping us figure out our way to go. And lastly, also one of the aspects that has been more and more important in career in science is career coaching, particularly for PIs. PIs and board of directors are many of them using career coaching to improve their personal and professional skills. And the best analogy that I can make is with your personal trainer in the gym or a coach in a professional sport. So this will be someone who will help us clarify our goals and focus on what we need to do and finding the best strategies to achieve those goals that we committed to. It's focused on tasks and actions, and the ultimate goal is for us to excel at the highest level. From embracing the role of all these different professionals, I think the next trend that I would like to share with you is that we are moving from a single person office, and I would add in a dark room with a Note PC, to a support that actually values diversity, inclusion, and hyper-personalization of our scientists. And how can we achieve this? We will achieve this if we combine internal services with external services. And I can give you two interesting examples regarding the importance of this. I don't know if you know, but there are institutions that place their career development office outside the research institution building in order to improve the adherence to career development. There are institutions that claim to have office peak hours in career development of 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. And there are situations where scientists are afraid to do career development because of how that will be perceived by their PI. The truth is there is a lot of stigma involved in career development, and I think the internal service is very, very important, but it's also very important to combine this with external services. And this can work as a feedback loop, and actually people who start doing career development externally will much likely be adhering to internal services after that, after the stigma has been reduced. Another important trend in this topic of diversity, inclusion, and hyper-personalization is the perfect combination of in-person with online services. There are things that online will never do, and there are things that in-person services also will never do. And I think we must embrace a future where these two types of services will be combined. And the power of combining two offers a much powerful way of serving different people with different needs at different times. For instance, a person that is more introvert probably will start doing online career development, and that will generate more confidence for that person that starts to do more in-person type of career development. Also, the in-person type of support typically provided by career development specialists within the institutions, they are the ones who know much better the type of environment and the type of career profile of what happens in that institution. So they have a set of knowledge that perhaps will be difficult to do with an external service that is provided online, for instance. But the advantage of online also is that, for instance, you can get a scientist in India or in Australia or in London, easily having access to a high quality consultant that is the best consultant for him, that could be placed anywhere in the world. And that democratization is a very important aspect when we think about science careers, particularly because there's a lot of mobility associated with science careers. Lastly, I think it's very important to combine formal with informal learning. So we know we adults learn very differently from what children learn, and it's known that the combination of formal and informal learning regarding career development, it's also very important to achieve an holistic approach and intervention regarding career development. Lastly, ideally, we would like to offer to our scientists a diversity of technical expertise, different languages and cultural representations when they ask for career development. And this also is where the combination between internal services and external services could be the key to achieve this. The fourth point that I would like to share with you is we're moving from inequality to a democratized access. It's not fair that some top-notch institutions give a lot of career development to their staff, while the other institutions with less resources don't have that support to give to their scientists. So I think in the future, particularly at the European level and with a vision that I think it's common to the European Union project, we must embrace a future of resource sharing and collaborative actions between different institutions. And we must explore the full potential of digital solutions to achieve this. This is also aligned with the green economy that it's one of the priorities for the European Union for the next coming years. And this leads me to my last point in terms of future trends. We must, as scientists, move from a high carbon producing solutions to environment sustainability. And the example that I can give you is like in 2017, I went to do a career development workshop in Central Europe. I'm based in Portugal. I flew there. And actually, we were 15 postdocs doing career development training on leadership. So the 15 of us traveled and did return flights to our home countries. The 2 trainers also traveled to the same place in Central Europe. And I made my calculations, and this generated the training of 15 people generated 2 tons of CO2 just to train 50 people. This was a training that was happening bi-monthly by a certain organization. So this organization, just to train 30 people, so twice as much, 15, was generating 4 tons of CO2 to train these 30 people. I think in the future, institutions will be asked how many tons of CO2 are they generating for their training. And I think we can no longer, as scientists, tolerate that, that we produce as much per people. Lastly, just to finish before we move to the Q&A, I would like to share that many of these future trends that I just mentioned are aligned with the vision that we at Chaperone have, a vision where a world where each and every scientist has access to high quality support in terms of their careers. And with that, I would like to close, thanking you very much, and I would be very, very welcome to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It was a very clear talk, at least for me. So please, if you have further questions, write it in the Q&A that I will raise it to Pedro. Meanwhile, I actually have some questions. So I know that you already had do some work with some institutions and probably others as well, and you have shown the statistics of the bad side of not having a career development. Do you have some preliminary or some feedback or some statistics of what has changed in people's life when they start doing some kind of career advising?
Yeah, so regarding our own data, what we know is that we're evaluating the impact in the level of the confidence of their careers. And we know that by having career development sessions, those people feel more confident regarding their careers, evaluated in different ways of post-service questionnaires. We also know that the user rating is quite good. For our services is 4.9 out of 5. But I think more importantly than focus on like our individual type of success, I think there are many studies showing that career development is important for scientists' career, and a lot of those can be found in published by different scientists in different countries where pilots were made and the impact was very good. But I think there's still room for much more studies to be made, particularly at the level of, like say, the organizational culture, productivity of those scientists, the impact of providing career development in let's say in a full manner, how that impacts the level of all scientists in general, how that increases the number of collaborations. There are studies, and the studies show very good trends, but I think we can do more of those studies to generate more awareness. But having said that, I think that has to be followed by a lot of institutions committing more to provide career development, because I think we need to move from awareness generating stage to action stage. And this is true also for an area that is very linked to career development, which is the area of mental health. I think we have enough awareness of the importance and the impact of these areas. We now need to move to action and providing those solutions, and then evaluating the success of those solutions.
So meanwhile, we already have a couple of questions. So I will read it to you. First question, it's from Sandra. Do you also work with institutions on their recruitment strategies? Are research institutions exploring alternative measures for evaluating and selecting those they hire? I'm thinking about other attributes of scientists beyond publications in high impact journals.
That's a very good question. We at Chaperone, we don't work in the recruitment part, in the recruitment area yet. Something that we can do in the future, but we don't do it at the moment. Obviously, the way you recruit your scientists, it tells a lot about how you treat your scientists as well. And I can see the link very well, but it's an area where we don't work. Yeah.
Other question we have, it's from Milan. During my studies, we were once told that holding a PhD is sometimes holding back career opportunities in non-academic sectors. What do you think about that statement?
I think it's a statement that it's very hard to make a general comment. I would say that in certain situations, if you want to transition to a role outside academia, there's no need to do a PhD, and doing it, if we take this to the extreme, can actually hurt your chances of getting that job if your PhD is not aligned with that transition that you want to make. But there are many type of jobs outside academia where doing a PhD is very helpful. At the end, it always depends on what PhD you did and what type of transition you want to make. And doing a PhD doing a PhD is a fantastic learning opportunity to gain transferable skills. And many of those transferable skills can be applied outside the industry, outside the academia, sorry. It's important at the beginning of your PhD to have awareness of how to develop these transferable skills and how to maximize your PhD during the 4 or 5 years where you're doing a PhD, how to maximize the chances that those transferable skills are nurtured and that you're developing a good strategy for your next transition after your PhD.
Yes, indeed, I agree with you. And a lot of times we miss information at the beginning of our PhD, and maybe to know that you can have a career advice at some point, it would be important already at the start. We have so many classes and so many things about science, but also these soft skills would be very important. We have more questions. So Joanna says, thank you, Pedro. Do you think that programs training scientists to market their own research can help to increase the confidence in academia?
Definitely. I think training scientists to better communicate, either it's for their own project findings or if it's for their own personal skills and sets. I think those type of training programs can definitely benefit a lot. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. It's an easy answer. Yes.
We have a question from Ine. From your experience, what are the non-academic that researchers most frequently transition into? What are the easiest fields to transition into in your opinion? Any advice to someone soon leaving the JRC?
Well, it's very hard to find an easy transition. Most of the transitions, if you're going for a different type of job that you're doing before, it will not be easy. That is not said it's not doable. It's doable, takes time and takes investment in terms of preparation for that transition. But
Can you hear me?
It's hard to make that easy transition, in a very easy manner. Having said that, the trends are constantly changing. Right now, obviously, there's a high demand for medical science license, project managers, product development, artificial intelligence and robotics, cybersecurity, everything that touches on these areas, there's a big demand on the job market. But this can change. The truth is that the job market has been increasing its dynamicity, and we now have jobs that we didn't hear 5 years ago. And the truth that, like, for us to be better prepared is like I said in my talk, to make a continuous reskill and upskill, and try to be aware of the trends in the market and how to get the proper career advice and career counseling to make good decisions in an informed and timely manner. I think that's the secret.
Thanks. For a brief moment, I was without internet. I just would like also to add that we know that JRC is exploring this possibility of career advice also for contractual agents that are finishing the contract. So it's good to know people that would be interested on such services. So
I see a question from Ricardo. Did you see it?
Yes.
Okay, I can. So Ricardo asked, how important can scientific exchanges between institutions in terms of career development? I think they are very important, because as we move from different institution from institution A to B or C, we're increasing our diversity of knowledge, and our mind becomes more open. And in some countries, actually, that is a big problem. And I would say that in Portugal, it's one of in some institutions, that's a big problem. We still have scientists that do their undergrad, their master, their PhD and PIs and become professors always in the same institution. That creates a lot of endogamy, which is not good for our scientific research. And I think increasing our experience either in different institutions, different cultures, is always a valuable experience to increase our value as professionals.
We have more questions here in the Q&A. So one question from Sandra. Thanks, Pedro. You touch a very important point regarding mental health and research. Are there studies or do you have concrete data on the importance of career support to mitigate depression, anxiety among researchers? And actually, I have another question that would fit to this, which is also linking to our next event, which is the role of women in science. Do you see a gender difference on this type of impact in terms of depression and anxiety?
So regarding the first question, I don't know personally. Very good studies providing a link between the positive impact of career development in terms of the mental health that are very clear. There are some, but the data is somehow very, I would say, limited in terms of the extrapolations that you can make. And actually, I just recently joined a cost action called REMO that it's going to last for the next 4 years, that it's dedicated to understand and better provide support in the areas of mental health for researchers. So I'll be participating in one working group in that cost action. And my main personal goal actually is to answer that specific question. I want to know, it's a biased interest, but I want to know what evidence exists between different institutions that by providing career development, you can mitigate these problems of mental health. We all know that it's very logical that it's very important, because people who experience mental health problems in science, they mention career instability as one of the main factors contributing to that poor mental health. There was a study in the University of Berkeley, for instance, where almost half of the PhD students were classified as depressed and taking antidepressive drugs to treat that. And they mentioned career instability as the top one factor, which was interesting, that was in front of overall health. Overall health was the factor number 2. So you can see that career instability was more important than overall health for those students in terms of what they could pinpoint as factors contributing for their poor mental health. So I think on that link in particular, we need more data, but my suspicion is that we will find very strong links. And regarding your question in terms of the gender imbalance, I would say that yes, there's a trend for women to feel more impacted in these issues regarding their careers. Actually, the Nature survey, the survey from Nature that I share, I believe has some data on that as well. Obviously, the COVID-19 crisis and this moving to remote work also did not affect men and women in the same manner. So yeah, there is some gender imbalances in terms of the impact felt.
Thank you. So Duarte is asking, what do you think of the funding for research currently existing in Portugal? Do you think that researchers in their careers in Portugal are being properly valued?
Yes, yes, I do feel. I think the most important point is a strategic point. I think we made the right decision in terms of increasing a lot the number of PhDs, so that we can have the same PhDs awarded per year as the majority of the institutions in Europe. That was a very good decision. But that has to be followed with an increase in the research allocated for those researchers. Otherwise, I think we're now, I made those calculations, we're now in the top 1 or 2 countries with the amount of money per researcher. So meaning that there's very little you can do with the amount of money per researcher that we have currently in Portugal. So there is a commitment or a public announcement to increase the funding in terms of the percentage of the GDP to 3%. Historically, in the past 20 years, it's always been around 1.3, 1.5. between this time range. I think it's a big commitment to raise it up to 3%, and I hope that they increase it, if not to 3%, at least to 2 or 2 point something percent, because at the moment the truth is that we have many researchers for the amount of money that we have.
So another question, we have here 4 more questions, and then I think I will stop because we are reaching the end of our session. So in terms of inequality to a democratic access, how do you see the problem of Brexit for Europeans?
I think it's a factor that is very worrisome. I think scientists in the UK will feel the impact of Brexit. The data that I have is that actually England will be able to continue to participate in some of the funding schemes provided by the European Union. And if that's true, because I'm not 100% sure, but I remember reading something on that, that could mitigate a little bit the impact of Brexit. But the truth is that I've heard that programs such as Erasmus or other type of programs that promote mobility might not be functioning in the UK, and this has a tremendous impact. I think it's a big step backwards in terms of what we achieved in the past decades, and I can only be sorry for that decision, and hoping that there is a way that we can mitigate that impact somehow.
So what is the current status in Portugal of programs supporting transition of researchers to companies, and what are these trends in Europe? Question from Sergio.
It's a good question. It's what I mentioned in my presentation. There are good examples. There are research institutions that have in their career development scheme very nice initiatives where they combine like informal with formal learning, internal with external services. They provide, for instance, job shadowing opportunities where researchers can go for a month to company A or B and experiment how to work in an industry setting, and come back and discuss that through informal gatherings with the remaining scientists that did that type of training. I think the trends are the ones I mentioned in my slides. I think that there are a few very good examples, but there are still very few. That's the answer. I hope that in the future that this will become the norm, that somehow we can regulate so that institutions are evaluated in terms of how they provide career development. And if we move to that stage, perhaps there will be a bigger commitment in terms of making these career development programs more like a norm.
So we have the 2 last questions from Tujuanas. How do you think that researchers can improve these career development options in their own institution? How to transition from an individual problem to growth opportunity in the design of the study programs?
I think the first question, I think most of the institutions, they have either graduate students representatives or postdoctoral representatives. In many institutions, these representatives have a seat at the table in terms of making important decisions regarding the institutions. It's not the case for all institutions, but some have. So I would say the easiest approach will be to liaise with your PhD community or postdoctoral association, or even the two combined, in terms of highlighting the importance of this and making real pressure to the board of directors in terms of implementing this. Some institutions also have an external advisory board. Perhaps they as postdoctoral representatives or PhD representatives could contact the external advisory board, providing evidence towards this. And yeah, I think those are strategies that I would follow. But in some institutions, it's a difficult task. It's not easy. Changing the culture of an institution, it's different. It doesn't happen in weeks. The other question was regarding how to transition from an individual problem to a growth opportunity. Well, I think what I've mentioned before touches a little bit on this, but if the institution cannot change, I think as individuals, we must try to find our solutions ourselves. We must try to find where can I get this type of support, if not provided by my institution, provided by other institution, or provided by my own needs. The error would be just to procrastinate and don't do nothing. That will be the most impacted person who will be you. We need it, and if our institution does not provide it, we must try to find it elsewhere.
Thank you. So the very last one, it's about endogamy. Shouldn't universities have a policy that would favor researchers that have been abroad? What suggestions do you have to prevent this endogamy?
I think that there are just before I answer this question, I will share for everyone my LinkedIn. So if you feel free to connect with me, and if there was any question that you were not able to ask now, you can ask me through LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer that. So moving to the question of endogamy. This is a topic where a lot of institutions already implemented measures that are working well. And not only institutions, but also funding schemes. For instance, the European Union has a lot of programs promoting mobility between different countries, where you are only eligible if you're changing from country A to B. Actually, for instance, they have programs supporting mobility intra-European and outside Europe. There are some institutions that they have requirements in terms of the number of years that a PI can be in the same institution. Universities are lacking a little bit behind. Traditionally, universities are not, I'd say in the majority of the countries, very fast innovative. That's a problem we have with academia in general. But in terms of research institutions and funding agencies, there are many good examples already of how we promote mobility, and those schemes have been working well. And I've been lucky to work in different institutions, and the vast majority of the institutions where I worked, there were many international students working there. At the SALC, for instance, where I was, only my lab had 7 different nationalities, and we were only 20-something people. So I think there are institutions where mobility is really strong, and others where it's not, but they should be aware of that and try to improve it.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It was really a pleasure, and I think there is high interest, as we can see by the number of questions. I can tell, so as Pedro mentioned, you can always contact him if you have more questions or more information, something that comes up afterwards, or you can contact us and we can put you in contact with Pedro. Just before we leave, I would like you to inform about our next event, as I mentioned, which is about celebrating the International Day of Women and Girls in Science on the 11th of February. At the same time, it's the next webinar launch. And just before we go, I prepared a word cloud to know what you found, what you think about career development, career advice after this talk. So please let us know. Maybe I was too quick to put. You can join the Slido through this QR. Oh, the words are coming. So necessary, promising, important, a compass. So to know the north, our North Pole, and to have a in the sailing that we are doing. So essential and necessary are the main words. I would agree with that. So I think it was we are very grateful for this talk and for being so clear. So I think we can stop here. Thank you again. And thank you everyone that was here. We are just a bit out of time, but I think it was worth it. See you next time.